Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're going to be diving into market reactions and some earnings surprises today. And also, we've got to talk about predictions for the future. With this new Trump administration and all this AI stuff going on, you've given us a ton of articles and data to go through. Hopefully we can, help you extract the good stuff.
Yeah. We'll be taking a look at how investors are reacting to that December jobs report. We'll be breaking down those earnings from big companies like Walgreens and Nvidia. And then we'll analyze what the experts are saying about the tech and insurance industries, especially with all these recent events.
Sounds like a lot to cover. Let's just jump right in. Okay, so first up, that jobs report. 256,000 jobs added in December. Unemployment down to 4.1%. That's got to be good news, right?
Yeah, you'd think so, right?
But the markets seem to be reacting pretty negatively. So what's the deal with that?
Well, it's kind of fascinating, actually. You see, the markets are forward-looking. And so while the numbers themselves are very positive, investors are actually concerned about inflation continuing. If inflation remains high, the Fed might have to keep those interest rates elevated. And that's making investors a little nervous, especially those with longer-term investments. I mean, we even saw the 30-year Treasury yield hit 5%.
Wow, 5%. That's a big deal. So even good news can be bad news on Wall Street. But what does all this mean for regular people, like someone who's trying to find a new job right now?
Yeah, well, despite those market jitters, a strong labor market is generally a good sign if you're on the job hunt. The thing is, we're seeing that it's taking people a bit longer to find jobs. Acting Labor Secretary Julie Su mentioned this. Competition for those highly skilled roles, it's fierce.
Yeah, I can imagine. So it's mixed bag, I guess. Positive job market, but also tougher to land that perfect position. All right, well, let's switch gears a bit here and talk about earnings. Walgreens had a pretty big surprise for everybody this week. Double-digit stock jump after they exceeded earnings expectations. And they also announced this major restructuring plan. I mean, closing 1,200 stores, that's got to be a bold move.
Yeah, it is bold, and it seems to be paying off at least in the short term. Their focus on all these cost-cutting measures, that seems to be what investors are really responding to. And this actually aligns with some predictions that we're going to see a shift toward value stocks in 2025. You might want to keep that in mind when you look at your own portfolio.
Good to know. So Walgreens is doing well, but then we have Constellation Brands, the company behind Corona beer and all that, and the stock actually fell. They're warning about lower consumer spending.
Yeah.
So it sounds like we're seeing some mixed results here. Some companies are thriving while others are starting to feel the pressure.
Right, exactly. And it looks like that difference in performance really comes down to how companies are adapting to this new consumer, someone who's much more value conscious, like Walgreens focusing on efficiency. That really resonates right now. But then Constellation Brands, their warning is basically saying, hey, those companies that are catering to more, discretionary spending, they might be in for a rough ride.
Interesting. So we're going to talk about it, right? The elephant in the room, a new Trump administration. How do you think his policies are going to affect the tech industry, especially with all the talk about tariffs and TikTok bans?
Yeah, that's a big one. I think Nvidia's statement criticizing those new chip export restrictions, that kind of gives us a hint about some of the friction that might be coming between the tech industry and the new administration. It seems like a lot of those decisions are being driven by concerns about national security, especially when it comes to China.
Yeah, and speaking of China, Apple's sales actually declined there, and it's because they don't have enough AI features. Does that mean they're falling behind in the AI race?
It definitely raises that question, doesn't it? And I think it really highlights how important it is for companies to adapt to different markets, especially a market as big and dynamic as China's. It'll be interesting to see what Apple does to respond to that.
Okay, so AI is everywhere. It's changing everything. LinkedIn even put out a report about the top jobs of the future. And guess what? They're all AI related. So what does all this mean for the future of work?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. The rise of AI is transforming the job market. And it's doing a couple of things. It's creating these brand new opportunities while also potentially displacing others. What workers need to do is be proactive, develop those in-demand skills. And it's not just technical skills, it's also about those uniquely human qualities that AI can't replicate.
Okay, so learn to code or become an artist.
Yeah.
What about those of us who aren't ready to become, AI engineers? What are our options?
Well, the gig economy is still going strong. It offers all kinds of flexible work options. Platforms like TaskRabbit, they're seeing a lot of growth. And lots of workers are earning some pretty decent hourly rates. So that's definitely a potential avenue for anyone who's looking for alternative income streams or maybe wants to explore a new career path.
Okay, so there's hope for the non-coders.
Yeah.
But let's talk about something a little bit more serious. The wildfires in California, they were just devastating. And They're a pretty stark reminder of the risks that come with climate change. This is having a huge impact on the insurance industry, right?
Absolutely. The cost of insuring homes in these high-risk areas, especially places like California, it's just skyrocketing. And that's actually creating a crisis of availability. This could have some major implications for homeowners and even the real estate market as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, we're not just talking about financial losses, but also whether it's even sustainable to live in these areas in the long term. It brings up a lot of really important questions about how we're going to adapt to these growing risks.
Definitely. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've talked about a lot of these, specific developments in the markets and everything, but I think it'd be good to kind of zoom out a little bit, maybe look at some broader trends and predictions for different industries. What can we expect, like in sectors like healthcare and finance in the coming year?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, we've been focusing a lot on tech, but healthcare and finance are huge parts of the economy.
Hmm.
So what are you seeing there? I mean, how are they going to be affected by, the new Trump administration and AI and all that?
Well, healthcare seems to be pretty optimistic right now. There's a lot of talk about deal making and innovation. Like at the JP Morgan Healthcare Conference, that's a big one where all the industry leaders gather. Johnson & Johnson just made this huge acquisition, and it seems like other companies are kind of eager to follow suit.
So healthcare is in expansion mode.
Hmm.
Interesting. Is that more because of, the changing political landscape, or is it more about the technology?
It's probably a little bit of both. I mean, the new administration will definitely bring some changes to healthcare policy, but the industry is also going through this huge transformation because of, breakthroughs in gene editing and personalized medicine. There's this feeling that we're like on the verge of a new era in healthcare, and companies are trying to get ahead of it.
Wow. Sounds like a gold rush for medical innovation. But we can't forget about the opioid crisis and the rising costs of healthcare. Are those things being addressed at all?
Yeah, those are huge challenges. And unfortunately, there aren't really any easy solutions. The opioid crisis is still having this devastating impact. And the cost of prescription drugs, I mean, that's a major concern for a lot of people. There are definitely efforts underway to try to address these issues, but there's still so much work to do.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that even with all this excitement about innovation and growth, we still have to deal with these serious problems. But, it's also important to see the progress that is being made. We have new treatments and therapies coming out all the time,
Yeah.
and there's more focus on preventative care and addressing, those social determinants of health.
Right. It's a complex landscape for sure, but there's definitely hope for a healthier future. Okay, so let's switch gears again. What about the financial sector? How are banks and investment firms positioned for 2025?
Yeah, it seems like a weird time for finance. I mean, on the one hand, you have these rising interest rates, which could be good for banks. They can boost their lending margins. But then on the other hand, there's all this worry about trade wars and, global instability. How's that going to affect the markets?
Exactly. That's the big question. It's a balancing act for these financial institutions. They have to manage risk, but they also have to find opportunities for growth. And all this while the technological landscape is changing so rapidly.
So how is technology impacting the financial sector specifically?
Well, fintech companies are disrupting those traditional banking models. And then you have AI, which is changing everything from fraud detection to investment analysis. It's a lot to keep up with.
It really is. So what does all this mean for, like, the average person? Someone like me who's just trying to manage their own finances in 2025. What should I be doing?
Well, I think the most important thing right now is diversification. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, right? Consider a mix of investments like stocks, bonds, and some of those alternative assets. And whatever you do, don't forget about that emergency fund, especially in these uncertain times.
That sounds like good advice. Having a little bit of a cushion can definitely help when things get rough. So diversify, save, and maybe invest in some comfortable shoes, because it sounds like we're in for a long and winding ride.
Maybe. But seriously, understanding these consumer trends and what's happening in the markets, that's really crucial right now. Companies need to be able to adapt quickly, especially with all this uncertainty. Speaking of uncertainty, what about that TikTok situation? That Supreme Court hearing is still going on, and the stakes are pretty high. What are some possible outcomes we could see?
Yeah, that's definitely been making headlines. It feels like this case has been dragging on forever, but it seems like a decision is finally coming. So what are the different scenarios, and what could they mean?
Well, there are a few possibilities. The court could uphold the ban, which would be a big blow to TikTok, and it could also set a precedent for how tech companies are regulated in the future. Or they could overturn the ban completely, and TikTok can just keep operating in the US. And then there's also the chance they could issue some kind of, more nuanced ruling. Maybe they'll allow TikTok to operate under certain conditions, or maybe they'll delay the ban while more legal challenges play out.
So a lot of possibilities still. Given how much this could impact TikTok and the whole tech industry, this is definitely a case to watch.
Absolutely. This case really gets at this complex intersection of technology, national security, and free speech. It's a conversation that's probably going to keep going long after the Supreme Court makes their decision.
Yeah, it really shows how fast technology is moving. It's moving faster than our laws, faster than we can even understand it sometimes. We're in uncharted territory here,
Yeah.
and it's up to us to, figure this out and do it responsibly.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've covered so much, from the economy to Trump and AI and everything in between. But now I think it's time to kind of bring it all home. What does all this mean for you? Like, how can you actually navigate all this uncertainty and set yourself up for success in 2025 and beyond?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? We've talked about the economic headwinds and, how Trump's policies could shake things up and the whole rise of AI. It's a lot to take in. So let's try to break it down into some, actionable steps that you can take.
Yeah, for sure. It can definitely feel overwhelming. So where do we even start?
Well, remember, knowledge is power, right? The more you understand these trends, the better decisions you'll be able to make. So let's start with the financial side of things. We've already talked about diversification and that emergency fund. But what are some other things you can do to protect your finances in 2025?
Well, one thing that comes to mind is debt. With interest rates going up, it seems like it's more important than ever to get a handle on those credit card balances and any other high-interest loans.
Yeah, that's a really good point. High interest debt can really drain your finances, especially with those rates going up. So think about consolidating your debt or maybe look into balance transfer options to try and lower those interest payments.
Right. Another thing I've been hearing a lot about is having a financial plan. Like, it's not just about saving and investing. It's about setting some goals and actually creating a roadmap to get there.
Absolutely. Having a financial plan gives you that sense of direction. It helps you stay on track, especially when things get a little crazy. Think of it like a GPS for your finances, guiding you towards your destination.
Okay, so get out of debt, create a plan, and invest in a good GPS. Got it. But seriously, though, what about the job market? We've talked about AI and how it's changing everything, but what can people actually do to make themselves more marketable in 2025?
One of the best things you can do is focus on developing those in-demand skills, especially skills that complement AI rather than being replaced by it. We've talked about creativity and critical thinking and emotional intelligence, but there are also a lot of technical skills that are in high demand.
Like all those AI-related skills from the LinkedIn report.
Exactly. If you can learn about data science or machine learning or cloud computing, those skills can make you so much more valuable in a lot of different industries. And there are tons of online courses and resources out there that can help you get those skills and stay ahead of the game.
It's almost like learning a new language. But instead of Spanish or French, it's the language of AI.
Exactly. And just like any language, it takes time and effort to learn, but it can pay off big time.
So brush up on those tech skills, update your resume, maybe start networking with some AI engineers. But it's easy to get overwhelmed with all this talk about, robots taking our jobs and the world becoming so complex.
What's your advice for staying positive and hopeful in 2025?
That's a really important question. It's so easy to get caught up in negativity, especially with all the information overload these days. But we have to remember that humans are incredibly adaptable. We're innovative. Throughout history, we've faced so many challenges, and we've always come out stronger on the other side.
So you're saying we shouldn't give up on humanity just yet?
Absolutely not. The challenges we're facing right now, they're actually opportunities. Opportunities for us to grow and evolve in ways we never thought possible. Like the rise of AI. It's not just about automation, it's also about augmentation. Using technology to make us better, to create a better future. It's about finding that balance, right? Where humans and technology can work together and each play to their strengths.
Exactly. And I think that's the key to success in 2025 and beyond, embracing that collaboration instead of being afraid of it. It's about staying curious and adaptable and open to new things.
Don't let the robots win, right?
Right. It's about remembering that we're the ones in control. We're the ones writing the code, designing the algorithms, shaping the future.
Speaking of shaping the future, let's go back to that Supreme Court hearing on TikTok. We're still waiting for their decision, and this case is a big deal. What are you watching for in their ruling?
I'm really interested to see how they balance national security and free speech. It's a tough one. And whatever they decide could have a huge impact on future cases involving technology and government regulation.
It just goes to show you that technology is changing way faster than our laws can keep up. We're in uncharted territory, and it's up to us to figure this out and do it the right way.
Yeah, it's not just about governments and corporations, it's about all of us. We need to be part of this conversation. We need to be making informed decisions about how we want technology to shape our lives and our world.
It's about being active participants, not just passive consumers.
Exactly. And we have to remember that technology is a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for good or bad. It's our responsibility to use it wisely to make sure it serves humanity and not the other way around.
All right, so to sum it all up, manage your finances, learn some new skills, stay positive, and be mindful of the power of technology. That's a pretty long to-do list for 2025.
It is, but it's also a really exciting time to be alive. We're at the beginning of something new, and the possibilities are endless.
As long as we don't let the robots take over.
Right.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive. Thanks for joining us on this whirlwind tour of the markets, the economy, and everything else that's going on in the world. We hope you found it informative and insightful, and maybe even a little bit fun.
And remember, this isn't the end. Keep learning, stay curious, and keep exploring.
We'll see you next time for another deep dive. Until then, stay curious and keep learning.